Okay, so where do you want him to be standing?
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming this morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order, January 18th, 2012. Okay, the January 18th, 2012 joint meeting of the City Council and Redevelopment Agency is called to order. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. These proceedings are being video recorded as well as presented live on KCLV Cable Channel 2 and are closed captioned for our hearing impaired viewers. Please note some customers of Cox Communication who do not have a cable box can view this meeting on digital channel 89.5. The council meetings as well as all other KCLV programming can be viewed on the internet at www.kclv.tv. The proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV and the web the Wednesday of the meeting at 8 p.m. and also on Friday at 4 a.m., Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 7 a.m., and the following Monday at 1 p.m. This building is protected by a state-of-the-art fire detection and suppression sprinkler system. If alarms should activate during today's meeting, please evacuate using the exits. Once outside, assemble on the Las Vegas Boulevard side of the property. Employees wearing safety vests or our city marshals will inform you when it is safe to re-enter the building. For public comment related to the items on the agenda, citizen participation and public hearing items, we have available a speaker card which you can complete and submit to the city clerk. Cards are available online in the clerk's office or at the front of the chambers. If you do not submit a card, it does not prevent you from speaking under public comment, citizen participation, or public hearing items. Okay, item number 2, we are in compliance with the open meeting law. I will go on to item number 3. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. The amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. All comments made will be cross-referenced to those specific items. If anyone submitted a speaker card or who wishes to speak under this portion of the agenda, please come to the podium, state your name for the record, and we will set the time at 1 minute. So this is public comment for our joint City Council and Redevelopment Agency meeting. Are there any cards that have been submitted? No. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on our morning session? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. We will go to item number 4, discussion and possible action on the City of Las Vegas Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the CAFR, for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2011, and discussion for possible action on the City of Las Vegas Redevelopment Agency Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the CAFR, for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2011. And who will, Ms. Fowler, you are there? Okay, go ahead and state your name and go right ahead.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem. Candace Falder, Finance Director. This morning I have a very brief presentation for you to discuss the Comprehensive Annual Report. With that, sorry, waiting for the slides to come up. Here we go. This is a joint meeting. We will be discussing the City of Las Vegas CAFR as well as the RDA CAFR. These are for fiscal year 2011. This is an annual audit. We had an independent audit firm of Kafori Armstrong conduct this review,
Can I just interrupt you for a minute?
Yes.
I forgot to mention, Mayor Goodman is excused for this meeting because she's out of town on city business. And I believe Councilwoman Tarkaning is stuck in traffic, and she will be here shortly. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. I do want to introduce the city's lead on the Comprehensive Annual Report. Joe Williams has been preparing this report for the past 14 years as a city employee. He leads up that effort. With us today also from Kafori, we have Michael Beal and Tammy Miramontes. If you have any questions at the end of this, they will entertain any of those that you have. The audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. Kafori issued an unqualified opinion on the reports and found no instances of material noncompliance. This CAFR is completed about, a month later than usually we come forward to you with the report. Extensions were filed with the Nevada Department of Taxation and with the Government Finance Officers Association. We have extensions until the 31st of this month, at which time, if you hear this presentation today and accept the report, we will file them. The Government Accounting Standards Board Statement 54 was a primary driver for the delay in presentation. This is under what they're calling the new fund balance. They came out with the statement intended to clarify the use of government funds for reporting, and it changed how the balance sheet is presented in the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. What they have now are 5 classifications of fund balance. We used to have restricted and non-restricted. Now we have non-spendable fund balance, restricted fund balance. Restricted is externally enforceable, and there are limitations on its use. That's what makes it restricted. Outside parties and statutory provisions or enabling resolutions would make it restricted. Committed fund balance requires formal action. There are self-imposed limitations by this council if we have committed. Assigned fund balance is a little less formal, and there are limitations based on the intended use of the funds. This council could take action to make it assigned, or the designated officer, in the case of Mr. Mark Vincent, your CFO, can make it assigned. And then again, the last category, we have unassigned fund balance. For the City of Las Vegas CAFR, we have cash and investments. As you can see, the exploded part is the
Let me just
general...
interrupt you for 1 second.
Yes,
Councilman
please.
Coffin has a question.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
Candace.
sir.
I have a question, because you're moving into a different area, so I'd hope to ask a question on the 5 different fund balances, because this is very much new stuff. And I want to know how it affects bargaining. In other words, certain funds, things, reserves and so on, are sometimes considered as fair game for bargaining tactics and so on. What effect does the GASB ruling in creating new areas have to do with that?
I'm not sure I could answer specifically what it has to do. Really, this is reporting requirements on how they are. If they're restricted and they're bound by NRS restricts their use, obviously those can't be touched. If they're non-spendable, they're not in a form that allows us to have liquidity to get them to use for other things. If they're committed, again, they have a purpose that this council has identified that those are set aside to be used for. The only thing that's truly out there that they could be looking at is the unassigned fund balance. It's typically what we had before. It wasn't set aside for a specific purpose.
Okay, thank you.
So back to cash and investments, the exploded piece of that is $105 million, and those are the governmental types, the general cash and investments. This $105 million that you see here includes the $50 million that this council has set aside for the Fiscal Stabilization Fund. Governmental fund balances total $568 million. Of that, here's where we talked about it, Councilman Coffin, only $86.6 million is unassigned at this time. The other $481 million are in the other 4 categories of fund balance. It's either not in a form that can be spent, it's restricted, committed, or assigned for another specific purpose. And again, of this $86.6 million, part of that is your fiscal stabilization. Highlights to the CAFR. This gives the comparison between what we reported last year for fiscal year 10 and what we have this year in fiscal year 11. I want to point out your main difference you're going to see is in the last line, the general fund balance. The fiscal year 10 items in that column have not been restated for GASB 54. They are as was reported and appear in the CAFR that we published. So we had an ending general fund balance of $75 million. This year, you will see when you look in the CAFR, a general fund ending fund balance of $152 million. Of that $152 million, you can go back, and that's the $87 million that's unassigned, but we also have the $50 million that's in the Fiscal Stabilization Fund. Of this 152, we had estimated that there would be, if we had not restated under GASB 54, this number would be $87 million. But once we've had to roll up those other special revenue funds that no longer require or no longer are able to be reported as separate funds in our presentation, that's what brings the balance up to the $152 million. So if we strip that out, if it was prior to the GASB 54 implementation, it would be $87 million. We had estimated a $76 million ending fund balance. That additional 10 over what we estimated for 11, $5 million was brought in as a transfer in from other funds that was planned in fiscal year 12, but because of timing, we were able to do it the year early and get it in there.
Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem? Candace, you're throwing out quite a few numbers for me. I'm
Yes.
trying to follow you.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a slide where each category is laid out systematically to show the 174?
I don't have a specific slide in this presentation. In the CAFR that we provided
Because
you.
what I'm trying to, if we can go back to the overhead, what I'm trying to basically get my arms around is in fiscal year 10, we had a $75 million ending fund balance.
Yes.
In fiscal year 11, and I think that we need to spell this out a little bit more clear for the public, because that's a huge swing from FY10 to FY11 as far as the ending fund balance,
Yes.
from 75 million to 175 million.
Absolutely. Let me walk you through how we get from the 75
Please
to
do.
What we've had to do with GASB 54 is we've had to examine every one of our funds to see if they qualified for the new definitions of what is a separate reporting or what needs to be rolled into our general fund. As the team worked through this, it was very complex and very lengthy. We identified 4 funds that did not meet the definition of the special revenue funds that they sat in, that needed to be rolled into the general fund. Those were the USDC Economic Development, Community Leisure Special Revenue Fund, Industrial Development, and Fiscal Stabilization. So the way we get to the larger fund balance is we have $87 million in what was general fund ending fund balance prior to the GASB 54 roll-up. Once we rolled that up, primarily 2 funds contributed to the now $152 million fund balance. We have industrial development. It is primarily receivables from city parkways of $14 million that sit in that fund. That is your non-spendable. It is not in a form that we could use for something else because it's a receivable, so it falls into fund balance. We also have $50 million or $51 million in the Fiscal Stabilization Fund that adds to that. We have 2 minor funds that are just under $500,000 in Community Leisure and USDC Economic Development. That then totals the $152 million.
There we go.
That was the highlights I had for the City of Las Vegas. We can talk about any of the more details if you have questions. And I wanted to move on now to the RDA CAFR that was presented to you. The first slide is on the tax increment. It shows revenues and the growth in those revenues for the tax increment. As you can see, starting in fiscal year 8, we had a growth rate of 24% from the previous year. That continued into fiscal year 2009 at 29%, and then we saw the rapid decline. Fiscal year 10, we actually had an experience of 4% increase in the tax increment the RDA received. And in fiscal year 11, we then saw a large decline of 36%. The reduction in this revenue then directly impacts our ability to do projects within the redevelopment agency. And as we've provided you before with our 5-year forecast, we don't see this increasing in the near future.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Candace, a quick question. I don't know if you can answer this. We're 6 months, if you will, into fiscal 12, and there's been talk about recovery in certain sections of our economic picture. Do you have any figures for the first 6 months of fiscal 12?
I have those, but not with me, Councilman. I'd be happy
Do you
to.
have an idea of how we're doing?
We are not doing as well as we had anticipated with property tax, and this RDA tax increment is directly derived from the property tax. So we are actually underrunning even what our projection was for the property tax. Not at the 36%
Okay, that was where I was
less
going.
than. It is less than that. We're actually seeing a reduction of about, I believe it's about 8%.
Okay, so stated simply, we're getting better, but we're certainly not to the levels of 8 or 9.
Correct.
We're better than 11.
We're much better than 11,
Okay.
and it may have bottomed out, but we do not anticipate that we will be back to any kind of double-digit growth in the foreseeable future at all.
Councilman, if I can, Mark Vincent, when you say we're better than 11, the loss is less than what it was in 11, but we're technically not better, we're worse. The revenue
I
is less.
understood
The
that.
revenue is
We're
less.
not as bad.
Yeah. We haven't hit.
If all 12 months of 12 are like the first 6 months of 12, we're not going to be at 36%.
Yeah. Perhaps
Correct.
to say it differently,
She said correct.
the bottom is shallowing, but we haven't hit the bottom yet.
The dollars are still declining. The rate of decrease
Has
is
slowed.
not as
And
strong.
that, well, I mean, depending on whether the glass is half full or half empty, that's a good thing, but not as good as we'd like it to be.
correct.
So we can all agree at least on that? Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem. Candace, looking at the RDA tax increment slide here, the increase for FY 8, 9, and 10 have all been positive. However, with 10 being slightly lower, yet and still, not to play the semantic numbers game, but the numbers are lower in 10 than previous years, 9 and 8. 11 has a 36.5% decline. What are some of the factors, or what were some of the factors that brought us to this point? Can you spell that out for the public?
Again, the tax increment is derived from the property tax, and as we had the changes in the decline in assessed value, our property tax values were down. Obviously, the rates we applied to those for tax collections yields us less revenue.
And that's on residential as well as
Residential.
commercial.
Yes, sir.
And what portion of this would you contribute to foreclosure? Because I know the foreclosure values dropped even more so than those values of individuals living in residential properties and also keeping the doors of the commercial properties open as well.
We wouldn't have that specific link of two foreclosures. I mean, obviously, they have a direct impact on a lot of this, but to give you very succinct numbers towards that, I don't have those.
Do we keep track of that?
No, sir, we don't keep track of that at this end. We rely on getting most of our data from the county.
The county assessor's office?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you believe that the county assessor's office would have that information?
I don't know that they've looked at it specifically with foreclosures in mind or just the actual assessed value of property within the county itself.
Right. I see Mr. Arndt coming forward. You have something to
Please.
share in regards to my questions, Mr. Arndt?
Thank you. For the record, Bill Arndt, Director, Economic and Urban Development. Ms. Falter is correct. We primarily rely on the county to give us the numbers for actuals. But we are trying to get our hands on what's been happening in the economy. We do have a consultant under contract that provides us with foreclosure data. Historically, we've focused more on the residential, but we're trying to get our arms around the commercial as well. But when the county appraises property, they do just that. They appraise property. So what's happening in the overall market can have a dampening effect on values. So they go and they appraise parcel by parcel, property by property. So if the appraisal values are coming in lower, whether foreclosure or just what's happening in the overall market, that's certainly having a negative effect. But we do have some commercial foreclosure data for you, and we can provide that to you in a separate briefing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
That's it?
Nope, got 2 more slides. RDA fund balances. This slide really shows you the impact of GASB 54 on the presentation and the financial. If you compare fiscal year 10 and fiscal year 11, you'll see the differences between the general fund and the special revenue fund. Here again, what was in the special revenue funds in the RDA do not qualify for separate presentation and need to be rolled up into the general fund. So in fiscal year 10, we had $16.9 million in special revenue funds. As we roll those up, again, just for presentation, not for execution of the work scope that we're doing in the special revenue fund, it would roll into the general fund. The general fund then goes from $1 million in 10 to $17.3 million in 11. When you look at the totals, primarily impacted by the reduction in debt service required in 11 of $3.3 million, we have a total fund balances in the RDA of $19.6 million. RDA net assets.
Councilman Coffin.
Thank you. Candace, you know, this is the second footnote where we've had it FY10 presented prior to GASB 54. Couldn't we have restated these so we could see the changes a little more year to year, more easily comparable?
We could have restated them. We really wanted to show you what the impact was of GASB 54 by actually showing you what was reported in fiscal year 10 and how the impact of that presentation affected fiscal year 11.
Well, I could see learning something if you were comparing within a year, restated to non-restated, but year to year.
And we'd be happy to do that. We could restate those and provide those to
Maybe
the council.
before he has those at hand, and we can do it during the council meeting when we get into council. Just a thought. Thank you.
RDA net assets, we've seen a reduction from 10 to 11 of 323% in net assets, primarily driven by the $15 million medium-term debt that we brought onto the RDA that was used to pay back the interfund loan from Sanitation Enterprise Fund. Proceeds from this medium-term debt were used primarily for the Mob Museum. And with that, that's my presentation on the City of Las Vegas and the redevelopment CAFRs. If you have any questions, I have Michael Beal and Tammy Miramontes here to ask anything you want.
And just so we're clear, you've covered items 4 and 5, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Both items.
Any questions?
I do.
Councilman Ross.
Just a comment, Mayor Pro Tem, if I may. And Candace, all of this information is available to the public, I'm sure, on LasVegasNevada.gov. Am I
Yes.
correct?
We will have the entire CAFR out there by close of business tomorrow that will be on the internet.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilman Coffin?
I just realized we're in a joint meeting. This is not a preparatory meeting, so in essence,
Yes,
you won't
sir.
be bringing this back during the full council.
No.
So if you could provide for me later, or if Kafori could give me, in the course of the day, what really we would be looking at, because you see, there are dramatic changes in the ending fund balance numbers, the ones that council, members
My
of the
pleasure.
council
We
were
do
focusing
have
on.
that, and it's very easy. I will get that to the full council by close of business today.
Okay.
And then you have both things. You have the
Your audit manager's
restated
right there.
and
Your audit manager's
oh,
right
please
there.
come on up, Tammy.
Hi. Yeah, I guess
Hi.
you want to make a comment?
I'm
and
Tammy
state your-
Miramontes. I just wanted to say if you have a copy of this, there is the reconciliation for you on page 21, which walks you through how the general fund looks versus the special revenue fund that was rolled in. It lays out each of those fund balances and then consolidates them for
Are
you.
you with Kafori?
I am. I'm the engagement shareholder with Kafori Armstrong.
Can you just briefly state the difference in for example, the CAFR ending fund balance, the GF fund balance? the dramatic change from 75 million to 152 million, just roughly. Drop your green eye shade for just a second and say what it would have been roughly if.
Well, the difference is, as Candace explained on the city, is it was those four funds that rolled in. So last year, if you would have consolidated last year, you would have been at 142 million versus 152 million this year. And so if you look at those beginning fund balances and roll them together versus the 74 million, is that?
So the 74 would stay?
The 74, if you would have restated last year, it would have gone from 74 to 142.
Okay, so then they're very similar.
The comparison is the
Year to
104.
year, and that's important.
Yes,
Anytime you're restating something.
the comparison between, had we restated last year, as Tammy said, it would have been 142 million compared to 152 million
That's,
this year.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
But I will still provide you with the direction on where to go within the CAFR document that you can see all the details of this.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the council, comments? Okay, can I have a motion for item number 4?
I guess what we're doing is accepting the report. Is that right? Approve it. Okay, well then I would move to approve the report with regard to item number 4.
Thank you. I have a motion. Please vote. Please post. Motion carries. Thank you. And item number 5, could I have a motion?
Sure. Once again, Mayor Pro Tem, I would move for the approval of item number 5.
Thank you. Please vote. And please post. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We will, thank you very much. We will now go on to item number 6, which is citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the City Council and/or the redevelopment agency. No subject may be acted upon by the City Council or the redevelopment agency unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Let's see. Okay, so we'll have a 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute.
That'll
So
be enough.
any member of the public wishing to be heard, come on up and state your name.
My name is Anthony Hart, and I live 123 David. I just want to say the parade that we had was very good, and I know that the mayor's out of town for the greater good for the city of Las Vegas, and it's good to see the council again. And since the mayor's not here, I shouldn't ask for that, but when you go to your new city hall, your grand opening, I'd like for me and my wife to have an invitation. Sure, you know, Oscar used to say, well, you automatically invited, but that's not good. I would like to have an actual invitation for the opening of the new city hall. Would that be too much to ask?
We will we'll do that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and have a good day. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anybody else in the public wishing to be heard? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment, and I will adjourn the joint City Council Redevelopment Agency meeting, and we will take 5 minutes and come back to our City Council meeting. Thank you.